Well, is this not a little bit of deja vu? We had been talking a lot lately about video topics that have been sort of recycled, conversations that we have had before. We already talked about Gaudreau and Columbus a lot, so we made a video about it earlier today. We made a video a year ago talking about Matthew Tkachuk and Jordan Kyrou trade rumors. Now, guess what? We're talking about that today. This video is yet another one of these discussions, but we're taking a big blast into the past to remember where it was we talked about this first, before we dive into why we're bringing this entire idea up again with the Dallas Stars and their captain Jamie Benn as well as Tyler Seguin. So, if you go back into December of 2018, this is a long time ago, we had ourselves a video that we made talking about what the Dallas Stars CEO said about his two-star players. Now, back in 2018, we did not have Jason Robertson and Miro Heiskanen and Jake Ottinger doing as well as they are today. These guys were all drafted in 2017, so this was back when we had Radulov and Benn and Seguin as the number one guys on the squad. Back in this time frame of 2018, Jamie Benn had himself 69 points in 77 games and 79 points in 82 games in that full season. Tyler Seguin had a pretty similar point production metric as he had 78 points in 82 games played. These two guys were, for all intents and purposes, stars at the National Hockey League level. And yes, pun fully intended there, they were stars. And despite that, here's the quote from Stars ownership talking about these players. "They're effing horse blank. I don't know how else to put it," Jim Light said. "The team was okay, but Seguin and Benn were terrible." Here's another quote from the Reddit thread that is in that same Athletic article's posting. "He's hitting posts. Wah, wah. That's what I say about hitting posts," Light said. "Get a little bit closer to the action. Actually, go to the spot where you score goals. He doesn't do that. He never does that anymore. He used to be a pest to play against. People hated playing against Tyler Seguin, and they don't anymore." Here's some context back in that time frame from Yes Bisony. "To those who don't know, our power play has been bad. You can make the excuse because we were playing without Klingberg for a whole month, but with the kind of contract and players that Benn and Seguin are, they still should be at a lot higher point totals than what they actually have right now." Now, as we know, as the year went on, they actually did finish up properly, and they finished up that season with 80 points for Tyler Seguin in 82 games and 53 points in 78 games for Jamie Benn, so Benn kind of fell off a little bit. But this quote still was said. It was said about two guys that were point-per-game caliber players. Tyler Seguin was a lot better of a point producer than Benn in this time frame if you're taking a look at how Jamie Benn ended up declining in points, but the quote was still somewhat unjustified. Which is why, if you go over to what was said earlier this week about Benn and Seguin on a team that isn't really, let's say, led by these guys anymore. I know Benn is the captain, but come on. I mean, you take a look at who led the Dallas Stars in points in 2021-2022. You don't even have anybody on this line at the top of the list anymore. It's Pavelski, Robertson, and Hintz, followed up by Seguin, who had 49 points in 81 games, Jamie Benn at 46 points. These guys are no longer the number one stars on the team. However, you had this quote from the Stars' owner on Benn and Seguin saying this time around that those guys know they've got to bring more. The owner of the team, Tom Glaglardi, went out there and said this to Saad Yousuf of The Athletic: "We have far too many players who are underperforming offensively, and we need something to change." He specifically pointed to the team's two highest paid forwards in Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn as examples. I think those guys signed those contracts and they've got to find a way to deliver that kind of value. If they don't, it hampers the team. That's the reality. They know that. Now, of course, he's talking about contracts. Jamie Benn is going out there with a pretty sizable amount of money, $9.5 million a year, with a full no-move clause till 2024-2025. He's 33 right now. So, by the time this contract expires, he'll be 36, he'll be making $9.5 million the entire time, and for Tyler Seguin, he's 30, so he's not that old compared to Benn, but he's signed till 2027, making $9.85 million a season too. He's also got a full no-move clause as well, so these guys are making a lot of money. But they are getting older. Tyler Seguin is going to be, 35 by the time his contract is over? Jamie Benn, as we said, he's going to be 37, 36, so these guys got a lot more time left in Dallas at a pretty sizable amount of money, and I mean, okay, they didn't produce terribly, 49, 50-ish points. That's not bad, but for the cap hit, you know? You got two guys getting paid like #1 players on your team. They're, quite frankly, not first-line players on your team anymore, and the owner is going out there and calling them out, saying that they need to be better. I've talked to Jamie Benn, Gauthier said. He knows he's got to find more. He's working hard this summer, and I met with him in Dallas after the season ended. He knows what he's got to do. Those guys know they've got to bring in more. You just hope there's a little bit of a change at the top, a different voice, some tweaks, and we can fix our structural problems, mostly on the offensive side of the puck. I think we are close. The article here on TSN then talks about how the Stars added Mason Marchment, by the way, RIP to his father, Brian Marchment, as well as defenseman Colin Miller. You also do have $11-point-something million in cap space with Jason Robertson and Jake Ottinger still needing to sign as RFAs. And so while the comments this time around by the Dallas Stars owner, Tom Gagliardi, were not in any realm in the same territory of harshness and bluntness as CEO Jim Light's comments when he said that Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin were effing horseblank, but still, it's interesting to note that this has happened again. If you go over onto the hockey subreddit and you look at the post made by SMEXEH, linking the TSN article we just looked at, you can see some of the comments that sort of make things a little interesting. Here's other things I like saying this. Well, the last time they were called out publicly, the Dallas Stars went to the Stanley Cup Finals, so maybe it'll work again? 14 Captain Crunch replies saying the last time they lost in round 2 to St. Louis, they started the next season 1-7-1 before going 14-1-1 in the next 16 and then seeing Montgomery fired. And then the pandemic happened and then they went to the finals. So for that strategy to work where you call out Benn and Seguin and you see the team go to the finals next year, there is a 1.75 year time delay. Here's an interesting conversation going on by Flyers LaForest. I feel like these two get called out every other year. This reply by Stinda kind of goes over why Benn and Seguin were even given the contracts they were given. They were extremely good when they were on stupidly team-friendly contracts. Take a look at the previous stat lines that they were going out there and producing. Jamie Benn was making $5.25 million a season when he won the Art Ross in 2014-15. That season, he had 87 points, and he actually did overtake everybody. It's kind of wild how the point race was really low scoring that season. Tyler Seguin also had a lot of points too. He had 84 points in 80 games played. He was making a pretty good amount of money as well, 5.75 AAV. Back then, these guys were both in their primes, and they put up insane career numbers with a legitimate argument that they were the best duo in the game since the Sedins. And so, when they signed contracts that weren't to the absolute benefit of the owner, they got scrutinized extremely heavily. The expectation was that they'd continue to be the best duo in hockey, but Seguin's injuries, Benn's surgeries, and just generally getting older means that was obviously not going to happen. Also, I don't think anyone looked at the Benn contract when it was signed and thought he was going to be an S-tier player throughout the whole thing. Honestly, I'm surprised it's not an absolute albatross with 3 years left. Now, as we said, Benn had 46 points in 82 games. That's not that bad. It could be worse. The guy had 39 points in 2020, albeit he did that in 69 games. He also did fall off a little bit with surgeries and whatnot after getting 89 points in 82 games in 2015-16. But all in all, I mean, even when you take a look at the playoffs and what the Dallas Stars did when they went to the Stanley Cup Final in 1920, go over to the point race right here and you search for Dallas Stars players. I mean, it wasn't even a Pavelski or a Robertson or a Benn that went out there and dominated this team. It was Miro Heiskanen, who had 26 points in 27 games played, and Klingberg was right behind him. So Benn and Seguin, even though they didn't really produce all too well, comparative to the rest of the team, I mean, they were just getting carried by their defense, and that was kind of the craziest part about the team going to the finals in that season. But either way, talk in the comments all your thoughts about the Dallas Stars and their owner calling out Benn and Seguin once again. These guys got called out a few years ago with some very harsh words from the CEO. Now they're getting called out once again, pretty much with the same sentiment. They need to be better. They need to show that they're actually worth the money, which, I mean, Benn is 33 years old. And it's been, 8 years since he won the Art Ross, so I don't really think he's going to go out there and prove that he's worth $9.5 million anytime soon, but, I mean, weirder things have happened, have they not? Tyler Seguin, 30, he's still got himself a little bit more time, but we'll see where he goes as his career progresses as well. Talk in the comments all your thoughts about the Dallas Stars and this situation. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 99, and bye.